In this video, we're going to look at how we generate a random number. One of the things that's most useful to us is if we start going through the libraries, we find that in the standard library, there's a function called rand, and its job is to produce random numbers. That looks like it should work. So I've already compiled this program, and let's see what we have, right? So working at 1 megahertz, 9600, right? Random number test, press enter. So let's have a look at this. There we go. And let's see the numbers we get. It's going to give me a random number between 0 and 32,000 and some half of 16 bits. Okay. Now, that looks fine, unless I come here and redo the program. Here it is restarting again. And try it again. Something curious there. We seem to be getting exactly the same numbers we had before. So, yes, they are the same numbers. So our random number generator makes these guys look random, but it's the same sequence every time we reset the program. You would love to be playing video poker. With every game, they always had the same set of cards. You know how to win, right? So this is actually a feature, because if you're programming some sort of system and you need random numbers, you always want to know what those sequence of numbers would be to check that the responses are correct. But for us, this doesn't work, right? Because it's always giving the same sequence. If you want the sequences to change, there's a second function in include standard library called srand. And its job is to see the random number generator and change. So let's make it 0. Okay. And I'm going to build and load this, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so here we are again. And yeah, look, we're getting different numbers from what we had before. Right? So that's good. If I use a different seed, I get a different sequence. But there's still a problem here. Okay, here we are, back again. It's the same sequence. Each seed is giving you a different sequence of random numbers, but the same seed always gives you the same sequence. So again, that's not that helpful. If I change the seed, say call it 10, build and load, I should get a different sequence. And I should mention srand only takes integers, so 0 to 65,535. Let's look here. And yeah, that's different from when the seed was 0. Okay. So we've got a bit of a problem here. We have a random number, a random number generator that will give me what looks like a random sequence, but it's always the same sequence based on the seed number that you give it. If I want it to be really random, somehow the seeds need to be random. Well, in C, if you were writing on a PC, one of the ways you would do it is you would base your seed number on the time that you're operating. Not everybody would be operating at exactly the same instant, so the seeds would be different and the sequences would look different. But our pick does not have access to a clock, so that won't work. Well, not quite. What we do is we create our own clock. We're going to give the pick its own timer, and we're going to basically randomly read the time and use that time as the seed for srand, which gives me a different sequence. And I'll show you how that's done now. Okay, so what we said we needed to do was create our own clock. Well, there are in fact up to 4 different clocks on your pick, different modules that are for doing timing. We're going to use timer 0. And there's a lot of settings in here, right? But we're not going to worry about them. We're just interested in creating a random number. So you could essentially cut and paste this. And what this does is it starts a timer. It's a 16-bit timer. So once it starts at 0, counts up to 65,535, goes back to 0, and keeps doing that. Because we're operating at 1 megahertz, it's doing that really quickly. While we're down here, wait for enter, even if we start the program and hit really quickly after we see that notice, you're going to be milliseconds different from the time before. So that the time at that instant will be a different time. And for srand, instead of using just any number, we're going to use whatever the clock is saying. So this is reading the clock. It should be different every time you use the program. And so now it will look like we have a genuine random number generator, or as best as we can do with this version of C. It's actually called a pseudo random generator. So let's build this. Okay. Check what we're getting. Well, we haven't had these numbers before. Let's reload it. Okay. Try again. Those are different numbers. Let me turn the power on and off to my chip. Remember, when you turn your pick off and back on, it goes back to the start of the program again, reloads. Okay, so it's reloaded. And again, that's different. Going to turn it back off and back on. Try it again. Different numbers. So this is how we go about creating something that's functionally a random number if we wanted to generate some simple games or something. That's all for now.